why would a business owner pay one accountant way more than another accountant who will theoretically do the same job?
Too many accountants are focusing only on compliance, and then they just go nuts in April and in October, and then they're so tired and burnt out by that.
We have to remember accounting is the language of business. And I think this is a great time for accountants to remember that and realize that their job is to be an interpreter of accounting, not just a recorder of the past.
Welcome to the Accounting Influencers Podcast with me, Rob Brown. We are continuing our series with interviews featuring top experts, influencers in the accounting world to talk about what is happening right now and, more importantly, what is coming up. And there are so many diverse opinions on where the challenges are, the threats are, and the opportunities are in the accounting world. And that's why we bring together the good and the great who all have a stake in the game and are serving the accounting profession in one way or the other. Our panelists are going to introduce themselves in just a moment, and we will debate some very interesting topics and give you some candid views on what we feel is going on with our particular viewpoint and lens of the world. I'm going to get Denise, first of all, just to say a quick hello and an introduction, and we'll go around and then we'll get started. Denise, welcome.
Great. Well, Rob, I'm grateful to be here with you and all our guests. And I'm Denise Froemming, President and CEO of Cal CPA, and we really are focusing on that next generation of leader and accounting leader and empowering them.
Well, that's definitely going to come up today, Denise. It's lovely to have you with us. Adam, great to have you too. You're no stranger to a microphone, are you?
I don't think so. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But my name is Adam Lean. I'm the co-founder of the CFO Project, where we train financial professionals on how to start and build a CFO or business advisory service.
And that incorporates accountants, doesn't it, Adam?
Yeah, accountants, bookkeepers, enrolled agents, CPAs, CAs, finance directors, anybody that has a financial background that wants to help business owners. That's
Sounds great. Leslie, lovely to have you with us as well. A quick intro from you.
So my name's Leslie Shiner. I'm the owner of a company called the Shiner Group, and we do financial management consulting, specifically in the construction industry. I'm not a CPA, although sometimes I play one on TV. I do have an MBA in accounting and finance from UC Berkeley. And my goal is to teach not accounting, but my goal is to work like Adam does. My goal is to teach profitability. So I actually never use the term accounting, or try very hard not to use the term accounting. When I'm working with clients, I'm teaching them how to improve financial management and profitability.
It's great to have you with us. I will put for our panelists' benefit the question that's coming up in the Zoom chat. So they've had a little bit of thought about it. I'm going to get you to do your opening comments in just a moment. Paul Surtees, nice to have you with us today.
Thanks very much, Rob. Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Paul Surtees. I'm CEO, co-founder of Capitalize.com. We've been around for about 8 years now. We are a business platform that helps accountants identify risks and opportunities within their balance sheets and helps them action those insights by accessing the capital that they need. And we're almost coming up to £2 billion, as we speak. So exciting times and great opportunities for accountants.
Well, let's see what we've got today. I want to start with asking you all, what should accountants and firms be wary of in terms of threats and challenges to their world? And just to give that some context, and I'll start with you on this one, Adam, if I may. Accountants survive for thousands of years. The finance function is so integral to business, and there's a fair amount of complacency around. It's recession-proof, probably. It's done really well without any change. So why are we even talking about threats and challenges? We could go on as we are very, very nicely. But what kind of shape do you feel we're in right now with the threats and challenges going on?
Yeah, I would say one word: commoditization. I think the accountants and bookkeepers and financial professionals out there are being faced with this idea that their job is commoditized in the minds of somebody who's buying your services. So think of a business owner who needs a bookkeeper, needs accounting. How are they supposed to determine who's a good accountant versus a bad one? Because everybody does the same thing in the minds of most business owners. Just the taxes have to be done right or wrong. There's no gray area. The books have to be done right or wrong. There's no gray area in terms of the minds of the people buying your services. So why would a business owner pay one accountant way more than another accountant who will theoretically do the same job? They won't. And so therefore, this profession is being commoditized. So you have to be able to not be commoditized. You have to decommoditize yourself in order to make money and really thrive in this industry.
Yeah. Leslie, you were doing a few nods there. Where do you feel the threats are coming from in this changing world?
So I think the threat to the industry is there's too much focus on compliance. Accountants are tax people and they just do compliance. And I know this because I have a slew of clients, and every year I get clients that say, I hate my CPA. Can you find me somebody else? And do you have anybody to recommend? And I'm like, nope. I'm having trouble finding people that want to work with companies and help them understand their business. They may say they want you to do their taxes, but they need help. They want you to help them understand their business, read a financial statement, manage their business, do the things that the CFO. I think that years back when we replaced all the accounting bookkeepers and full charge bookkeepers, I'm old, I still remember that term, full charge bookkeepers, with software. The software is great. It doesn't make math errors, but it also doesn't tell you you're an idiot and you're posting things all over the map. So that's my feeling, is that too many accountants are focusing only on compliance, and then they just go nuts in April and in October, and then they're so tired and burnt out by that, they don't have time for anything else, and that's not what their clients want.
Sure. And to Adam's point on commoditization, we know there's downward pressure on compliance fees. It's valued less by business clients. So maybe it's a fight for relevance. Paul, where do you see the threats to the accounting world coming from?
I think I'm going to touch on both of the points that have been made. From a commoditization perspective, we're actually quite a sophisticated buyer of accounting services. And so actually for a firm to come across and actually make a difference for us, they've really got to step across the Rubicon and deliver something quite impressive. And I think actually that leads me on to the threat then, which is there are a handful of firms, and if I'm honest, our experience would suggest that it's actually a handful of people within the firms who actually see the opportunity of doing much more, much as Leslie suggested. And that opportunity of really advising businesses and going deep and understanding that opportunity, that's the crossing of the Rubicon that I talk about. And as a sophisticated buyer, we really, really notice that difference when we meet our match, if you will, somebody who can add value. They're the people that we want to work with. They're the businesses, they're the providers that I think businesses should look to work for. And the people who are not responding to that opportunity are the ones under threat.
Denise, we've set this up nicely for you to come in here and hit a home run. We are in a fight for relevance, aren't we? And accountants are being threatened, are they? Is that fair?
It's fair. I mean, I keep talking about the race for relevance because there is, right? And from the commoditization, I think about the business models. We've been talking to a lot of firms, even organizations, about the business model that they have, and it not being a commodity, but it being something that is more on the advisory strategic level, and not just having the tax services, but offering estate planning, personal financial planning. So more of that extension and that continuum, right? And then I think about too the talent that's out there. So if you have to change and flip your business model, we hear sometimes the talent that's coming doesn't really understand the whole perspective, right? And the financial literacy piece. So how do we make sure that the talent coming up is poised to be able to deliver on these new business models that have to be extended to make firms really be more valuable? And so all these pieces are very relevant and focus on, I think, a lot of the challenges for firms, and the regulatory is just out of sight. It really is. I just was going over bills in California. There's over 100 for AI that are coming down the pipeline. So it's a lot for us to watch and a lot for us to educate on. And I think those are the kind of pieces that I see out there.
So hard to keep up with all the changes. Let's talk about the brand of the accounting profession. Denise, you spoke about talent there. And Leslie, I'll start with you on this one. As change agents, whose responsibility is it to ensure that the accounting profession is future ready and relevant? And dare I add, attractive to up and coming professionals and graduates? Whose job is that, Leslie?
Well, that's the sad point. I think it is the job of the partners who've worked hard to become partners. On the other hand, I always compare partners in firms like people who join fraternities and they're like, hey, I had to go through hazing and work 80 hours a week in April, so you should too. And that's where they're losing their talent, is they're not listening to what their employees want. So it should be the partners of the firms, and they should be responsible for trying to engage their employees, to get their employees to connect with their clients. Unfortunately, I don't think they're the ones that are going to do it because they're burnt out and they're tired, and I don't have the right answer to that. They're the ones that should be, but I don't think they're going to.
Paul, you talk to accountants all day and they'll tell you about the talent problem and the shortage and all the threats and everything else. If we were to rebrand accounting as a profession, whose job would that be in your eyes?
I think actually there's a massive rebranding going on. I'm sure this is happening in the States, but forgive me because I'm specific to the UK. But I think that private equity money is coming in, and obviously the big roll-up strategies of these large organizations, and obviously the largest in the UK is assets backed by HG Capital, and there's a whole bunch of these organizations. As that comes in, the business structures of these larger firms are changing, and so now instead of a partnership group, you've got CEOs and MDs and COOs and people taking very different routes in, and that is changing the very structure. So instead of the hazing and all of those kind of elements that you talk about, actually people are more conscious that they can take several job hops across firms rather than being in a firm for a lifetime. And so I actually think, unfortunately, it is the flow of cash that often dictates these things. And with so much cash sitting on the sidelines in these private equity firms and the multiples that are gearing up, I think that's going to be the driver that takes us down.
So they are going to be responsible, whether they know it or not, of rebranding the profession to make sure they get the money out, presumably.
100%, yeah.
Denise, the governing bodies, professional associations clearly have a role to play here. Who do you feel are at responsibility stage for driving the profession?
I mean, I honestly think it's a shared responsibility. And to Leslie's point, the firms do not have the bandwidth to do it. So we're trying to help with that and say, where can we shore you up and make sure that you have the opportunity to be able to elevate, right? And so I think it is, and we're working with, I mean, Paul, to your point, the AICPA is working with NASBA, who's working with firms, who's working with regulators, who's working with, societies, and how do we all, and educators are big too, because they pull from the very beginning of the pipeline, right? So how do we all work together to make sure we have the shared messaging and reduce some of the barriers? So that's a focus for us through a number of organizations. And we've dedicated, 4 individuals to just work on this piece because it's a real issue. But to Paul's point, I mean, the money talks, right? And when that starts changing, it's going to just drive everything else and pull it through.
I'm just thinking of the problems of multiple stakeholders who have a job to do. If it is a joint effort to rebrand the profession and keep it relevant, then getting consensus on what that looks like is difficult, but also with many parties involved, everyone thinks it's everyone else's job, or everyone else thinks everyone else is going to sort it. So what are your views on change agents and who's responsible?
I don't know, but I will say this. I think it's everybody's individual responsibility to be their own change agent. In other words, if I'm an accountant and I know that I want to be future ready, then who cares who else is responsible? I'm only responsible for myself. I got to make sure that I'm future ready. And the only person that can dictate what future ready looks like is the customer. That's the only person. So I just need to get good at understanding what the customer wants. And if I'm serving business owners, I need to understand what the business owners want and what they want what I agree completely with what Leslie was saying earlier. What they want is not just knowing that their books are right and their taxes are done. That's a necessary evil. They know that has to be done, but what they really want is something totally different. They want to have a better business. They want to have a growing and successful business so they can have a business they're proud of, that can put more food on their family's table, and they can leave a better business home to their kids. That's what they want. And they're looking at the numbers, people, in their lives, to tell them how to get there. But all the numbers people are doing is saying, well, here's your P&L, here's your balance sheet. I did my job. And there's a giant disconnect.
Any comebacks on those thoughts, everyone?
Yeah, I do. I would just say, Adam, have you run into firms? Because I've run into a number of firms who are doing the opposite of that. So they understand that value proposition and they are changing, their culture is changing and they're changing what they offer. So I'm just going to give you one example. Someone I talked to who's a speaker, she said she has this accounting is my love language, because to your point, it took everything off of her arguments with her husband, her stresses with her taxes, and provides her with just a solution so she can do what she's good at and she doesn't have to worry anymore. And they actually interviewed her. So she didn't interview the firm interviewed her and said, I want to make sure you're a fit for me. So I'm seeing more and more of the positive coming out. Are you seeing that?
Meaning accounting firms are adjusting to what the client
Yes.
wants?
Yes.
I think so. I think the smaller firms are more amenable to this. They're adjusting faster because they can, whereas the legacy firms are just not. And I think the days of billing your clients by the hour for work they don't really understand are coming to an end.
Mhm.
So
Paul,
I think it's true in smaller companies.
Paul, you said yourself you're a discerning buyer of accounting services, but the theme that's come out from these panels we've done so far is that the clients themselves are not always the best to dictate what they want from their accountant. They don't know what advisory is. They don't always know what questions to ask. They don't know how to encourage proactivity in their accountant. So it's a very rare client that knows exactly what their accountant could be doing for them.
And obviously we cover the accounting profession, so we've got we've got an even tighter lens on it. But I think that, thinking about what Adam and both Denise have said, I think first of all, we each as individuals have responsibilities for making sure that we are capable and ready for what's coming.
Mhm.
I think that the second piece that I would outline is that I would say every industry in every vertical outside of accounting too probably feels the tension of this moment and the next moment and the moment after that and the moment beyond. And, certainly from my perspective, looking at the accounting community, they do a pretty good job of coming together, sharing their tales of woe, but sharing their celebrations, thinking about the technology that they're using and delivering that, into a good account. I mean, if anything, here in the UK, we have too many events, kind of competing for attention. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think, as Adam's point is that I think the small and nimble firms, they've got the capacity to be able to do it because the decision makers are running the firms. The bigger firms, those getting rolled up into private equity, as I touched upon, they've got the cash to come in and put technology in, flow it through and have chief people officers and all of that good stuff. It's the regional firms, they're ones with, and I'm sure the numbers scale inordinately in the US, but 2, 3, 4,000 clients here in the UK, they're the ones that are having the toughest time because they've got neither of those things. They've got the partners around the table, they've got slow decision making, or not as fast as they'd like it to be, and they don't have the cash to make the change. And that's where the entrenched challenges, I think, really, really lie.
Well, I'm intrigued about Leslie. Were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think every accounting firm, when they're talking to their clients, they need to ask, and I ask this all the time, what are the top 3 to 5 things that keep you up at night about your business? Your kids is your own problem. What are the things that keep you up at night? And besides compliance, besides tax returns and all this stuff, do you want help with that? Is that something that you see that we could help your business and improve and get rid of some of those concerns? And that's making that shift from compliance into advisory services. And we've been talking advisory services for years, and yet so many firms don't even think it, which is again why my clients constantly say to me, find me a new accountant. I was thrilled when one accountant said to me, you guys meet quarterly for financials. When one CPA who does a tax return, maybe I should join those meetings and help. And I thought, what a great idea. Let's live in the future instead of in the past. And my problem with CPA firms is they live in the past. Do what you do all year. And then I'm going to come along, and because I can't ever do anything on time in October, I'll tell you how you did last year. And by that point in time, the client's like, so what? Tell me what I'm doing this year. So again, I think that they should be listening to their clients. They should be asking for and being proactive in helping their clients instead of retroactive and just doing the tax returns.
Denise, we're getting a picture here of listening. If I were to ask you the question, who do accountants listen to? And who perhaps should they listen to? Where should they be paying their attention? Everybody wants a conversation with an accountant. They're the second most sold to profession in the world behind doctors. Every pharmaceutical company wants a conversation with a doctor, and we know why. But accountants are the guardians of business, and everyone's selling to them and everyone's advising them and telling them. I don't know how good they are at listening, but if we were to identify who has the ear of today's accountants, where would you start with that?
I would say, I mean, it should be the clients, and I think a number of them are listening to the clients, but it's in the marketplace, right? Where's the marketplace going? And where do they need to go to, make sure that they're successful and aligned with the needs that are out there? And I don't know if all of them ask about the gaps, like, where am I at today? Where are my clients? Where is the market? And where do I need to go in relation to that? And so that's a piece, and we've all been talking about that they, I think many of them have to get to, and it's something, it's something that we can help them as well. So I'm going to stop there and take a drink of water while someone else adds to that.
Actually, who do you feel accountants listen to? Who has their ear? And are those people indeed who they should be listening to?
Well, I think a lot of accountants, as Paul said, go to these conferences and they try out all this different software and they're like, oh, this is going to streamline your business. And now that you have workflow taken care of, now you're going to make lots of money and things will go great. And so I think, unfortunately, they listen to the vendors and sort of take in what the vendors are saying. And they don't look at, how can I use this, or is this really going to help me? I also think there's the different governing agencies or CPA practice advisor or those sorts of different organizations that are trying to reach out and talk to them. And I think they are somewhat listening to that. But I think they have a tendency to listen too much to the latest and the greatest that showed up at a conference.
Adam, it's the silver bullet or the shiny new toy that accountants love. Who do you feel has their ear right now?
Well, who do I feel has their ear versus who should have their ear?
Well, let's have both.
So who should have their ear is their customer. Like the accountant should be listening to their customer and figuring out what they want. I mean, you should absolutely understand what your client wants, because I guarantee you what your client wants is having a better business. Whereas accountants are looking at things through their lens. They're looking at everything through a financial lens. Well, your clients are not. And we have to realize that. Your clients are not looking at everything through a financial lens. And so if you're truly listening to your client, they're going to tell you all the things that they need help with. But unfortunately, accountants, if it doesn't fit nicely in the accounting box, they just sort of ignore it. Well, then what's the point? You should be listening to your clients. In terms of who they are listening to, I don't know. I agree that there's tons of vendors and people that have an agenda out there that want to sell you something, us included. There's a lot of competing voices, but I would say that one that you should listen to is your customer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Paul, you are in the vendor software provider space. And when Leslie said, unfortunately, accountants listen to the vendors, she meant to the exclusivity of everyone else. So you do have a voice.
Everyone, but
you do
Paul.
have a voice for accountants, Paul. They do listen to you. Is that the only person whispering in their ear?
I wish that were true. I think that for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's each other. Okay, they spend an awful lot of time at these events, networking together, whether it's in the accounting networks, whether it's managing partner dinners, whether it's all those things. From a vendor perspective, the best place that we can be is when the managing partners of the firm are talking positively about us, whether it's the small ones or the big ones. That's how I think the sort of the Slytherin talk actually works, and that's how the vendors should be working in that space, word of mouth, and that's the benefit of being a vendor that's been around for a while. I think that I think they're right to listen to each other. It's shared experiences, shared failures, shared wins. And, from there, that's where the momentum gets on. And I think that is why I think a lot of vendors find a challenge, because there tends to be a group movement towards certain vendors, certain products, because of that peer communications that they all share. And look, it's wonderful. I mean, Rob, you play your part in it, right? I mean, with your air groups and so on, that's bringing everybody together for these conversations.
Thank you, Paul. Aries, the Accounting Influencers Roundtable. We have speed networking events every quarter for North America and UK Europe, and we invite anyone to come to the conversation and talk about what is happening in accountancy. Denise, I just want to give you an opportunity to finish this off as you grabbed a glass of water now and swallowed that, and you're back on track. Paul mentioned peers talking to each other, and there is that element of curiosity, a peer over the garden wall, or looking at one another's medicine cabinets, and what are you doing for this, and what are you taking here? And peer interaction is important, which is why we provide events and networking mixers and gatherings to find out what everyone else is doing. Would you agree that that is a key listening point for accountants?
I would, and that's something we're trying to convene groups and facilitate more of that roundtable listening, and trying to put in front those firms that are future-proofing, right? Cutting edge, so to speak, so that they can learn from each other, right? What's working, what's not, what are clients, what's beneficial to clients, what's not. So we're seeing more and more firms who want to have those type of conversations and who want to look at it from a more future-proofing kind of lens. So that's definitely something that's of interest to them, and we're trying to facilitate that. Let's
talk about talent. We can't have a conversation about the future of accounting without speaking about the people. Everybody knows this. The big black hole in talent. Less and less people are taking accounting degrees. It might even be the same in the tech industries, Paul, and you can speak to that. People are also leaching out of accounting and maybe going into industry or going into tech or going into other industries altogether. So we do have a problem. And if you want to drive growth and drive change, we are going to need boots on the ground and expertise in firms. So, Paul, let's kick off with you on this one. What should the accounting profession do to attract more talent?
I think that there's obviously the roles where you need to be qualified. And then there are a whole bunch of roles within a firm where you don't need to be qualified. And I think when we think about the structure of firms, not necessarily being traditional partnerships, but more like COOs and CPOs and those kind of things, and how they can develop, and that can flow into smaller firms. You don't necessarily need to have chartered qualified individuals in that space. You can have amazing salespeople out there winning new clients and keeping the top of the funnel alive for accounting firms. You can have, as one of our accountants, an incredible individual building cash flow models, but they're not necessarily, he isn't a qualified accountant. He's, sort of ex-investment banker type character, but he runs this as a team within a broader organization. And, what he does is magic. So you can bring some really exciting people into a firm if the structure of the team is set up such to make the most of those. And I think, as Adam said, the smaller organizations have probably more opportunity to be able to do that. But diversity is the benefit of everything, right?
That's got to be a play for sure. We're feeling some pushback in the profession that I talk to with all the influencers that we bring together, is that the qualifications are becoming more restrictive and perhaps a little less relevant. There's more can be done without a CPA qualification or a chartered accountancy qualification. I had an anecdote recently of a big business that had given their accounting business to a company that was certified in a particular software, accounting software, because they felt they could do 95% of the accounting. Now that again speaks to relevance. So we'll come back to that. Adam, what's your take on the whole talent problem?
This is a good question. I've been asked this before, and I don't know. I used to be an accountant, and I didn't like it at all. And I didn't like it for precisely this reason. My job was to record the past. That was it. It was not interesting. Whether the business made money or didn't make money, or the business was falling off a cliff, it wasn't my job. My job was to record the past. It was just hard for somebody like me to sit back and just do my job and then leave at the end of the day. I mean, I wanted to get involved in the business. So I don't know what the answer is to this question, except for the fact that I think people that are graduating college want to be involved in things that are impactful. They want to have an impact. And I felt that my job as an accountant was to have zero impact. In fact, they told me that they didn't want me to do anything outside of just recording the numbers and making sure that the boxes were checked. And that was incredibly boring for me. So I started a business on the side, and that business grew, and I was able to leave my day job, and I didn't look back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left the accounting profession.
We ran a series of 5 questions to 110 influencers recently. Denise, you took part in this, and Leslie, so did you. And one of the 5 questions was, will the next generation of accountants be any different from their predecessors? And what came over very strongly was an obvious yes, but it's how. And Denise, I'll bring you in here. When we speak about talent, the generation coming through, they want more meaningful work. They want better tech. They want better work environment. They're less driven by, say, the partnership model and being chained to a desk for 10 or 15 years, or big payouts and big money. The game is changing. So what's your view on the whole talent thing, and how can we attract the brightest and the best?
I mean, there's a lot of rebranding happening right now. We've done it. I agree with Adam. I mean, the purpose, a lot of young professionals want a purpose in what they're doing, and they want to see the impact that they're making. And I think, going forward, there's that opportunity. There's going to be much more from the sustainability side. And so that's not just the financial, the rear view mirror. There's more on the operational, right? How does that connect in, and how does it make a difference on a much bigger platform? I think AI is going to change that too. And there's the audit. I know there's firms that are doing a lot of their prep for their audit and doing their work papers in ChatGPT using AI. And then the accountants, CPAs, can do much more purposeful work. So I think that the tech, the sustainability, and just the connection on so many different pathways there are within accounting or CPA. A lot of firms, before you went firm to industry, there's people going industry back to firm. So there's a lot of change that's happening. And we just have to embrace everything that's coming and make sure we implement it and integrate it into the future and where we're headed. So that's going to be the challenge.
I think part of part of Denise's point there, Leslie, is that it's okay getting them in, but we've got to keep them in as well. We've got to keep them interested and keep them engaged in a meaningful profession. In my view, for what it's worth, here, even though I'm chairing the panel, we don't tell enough success stories about how good accounting is as individuals, as firms, and talk about the difference that we make. Leslie, what are your views on the whole talent shortage?
Well, and I agree, but I think too much focus is on finding people that have gone through the university and gotten chartered or CPA or got that degree, when I don't think that's even necessary to attract talent. You can always then attract somebody who's got an interest in numbers and is liking what they do, and then help them do that. I think that, there's a problem with attracting talent, not just in accounting, it's in pretty much any industry. And it's finding people that are interested in numbers and like to play with numbers, and then be able to help them see what they're doing. And so looking at 2-year plans and 5-year plans and being able to say, what are you looking for in a job? And to stop churning and burning, because I think way too many accounting firms find somebody, overwork them, and kill anything they want, any desire they have to continue in the profession.
Yeah. My background is in teaching. I taught high school mathematics for a number of years, a few in Hong Kong at an international school and a few in the UK. I came out of teaching after 8 years because I felt I was teaching children to pass tests. It was more of a coaching role. And that was really sad because I didn't feel like I was educating. And they sold teaching back then as a job for life. You come in there, you do 30, 40 years, it's rewarding, but fewer and fewer teachers are lasting 40 years. And we're getting to the point where fewer and fewer accountants are lasting 30, 40 years. It is not a job for life for whatever reasons. So there are lots of things going on. I want to pivot for a moment from talent and talk about the tech. Oh, go ahead, Denise.
Can I just add something to what you and Leslie said? Because we've been having a lot of conversations just to on future-proofing the profession and looking at competencies. So because Academic is changing. And so we need to look at more of that competency model. We see a number of individuals who come from different disciplines and are great accountants and CPAs. So that's definitely a focus. I just wanted to add that.
That is a great point. There are lots of skills that are not measured by a CPA, a chartered accountancy qualification, that are super relevant to keep accountants in the game. We could talk about soft skills at length, and leadership and persuasion skills and presentation skills and empathetic skills. If we talked about mental health and well-being and all of that stuff, it's the accountancy role has almost changed, particularly during COVID, from a professional advisor to a psychotherapist and a counselor and a friend and a shoulder to cry on, as they guided businesses through the madness that was the pandemic. And that was a whole new skill set for accountants. But let's pivot to the tech. And Paul, I'm going to put you on notice that you're coming in last on this one. So I'm going to let you hear, as our software tech person in the room, if you like, I'm going to let you hear their other answers. And Adam, I'll start with you on this one. What role do tech providers and software vendors have in serving the accounting profession, and how could they do it better? Where would you start with that?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the customer of these tech firms, the software providers, the customer is the accounting firm. The accounting firm's customer is the client.
Right.
So the tech software, the softwares and the tech vendors have to understand who their customer's customer is and figure out how to better that. Because I think, I can't remember who said, I think Leslie said that a lot of times we buy software because it will help us do something on the back end. But if the end customer can't really, doesn't really see the benefit, then what does it matter? And I think that, I don't know, I think seeing your customer's customer and helping and selling something that can help your customer's customer, I think will go a lot longer, a lot more.
On our 5 questions for the accounting profession that I mentioned earlier, we made a podcast out of it called the Accounting Answers Podcast. It's now live. There's an episode going out live every day. One of the questions was, what could the tech software providers do better to serve accountants? Leslie, you featured on that, and yours too. What would you say here, Leslie? You can repeat that answer if you want.
This is where I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I find too many software vendors, large, very large, who rule the world, are so excited to get their accountants to be able to go in and do adjusting journal entries to the clients and go in and fix all their client books, except the client doesn't know what they're doing. And so they're building software to make the accountant's job easier.
Yeah.
For example, a chart of accounts shouldn't just tie to the tax return. That would make your accountant's life really easy. But maybe it should tie to something that helps the customer understand the profitability or lack of profitability in their business. And that's where I think software vendors spend too much time going in and selling to the accounting companies. And the accounting companies just go in and force people to change the software that they want to make their lives easier, but it doesn't make the client's life easier. And I have many clients that have been moved to particular software products, and every time they talk to me, they tell me how much they hate it.
Yeah. Denise, when we talk about tech software providers, there is varied as accounting firms, like the big 4 down to the one-man band and the one person. And there are some big tech software vendors, multi-million-dollar market caps. And there are thousands and thousands of startups and small app providers and everything else. But generally speaking, what do you feel these people could do better to serve accountants?
I'm just going to echo what Adam and Leslie said. I think it's the use cases really, and being a real partner and understanding who your client is and client's client, right? So that you can help nuance the product. And I'm going to go with what can we do better? Because I think we could do better at really understanding what we need from the software. And I know personally, when we buy things, we use 20% of what we buy because we don't understand our business enough to really align with the software. So, it's a true partnership. And I think sometimes we don't look at it as that and as a long-term partnership. And there isn't the back and forth that there needs to be.
Paul, you've heard all the answers. I've teed you up nicely. You are in this game. You are serving the accounting profession. How well are you doing it?
Wonderful. Well, look, actually, can I link talent and tech together, actually? So
Sure.
in the
Have
first
at it.
question, you talked about what are the threats and challenges? And, what I found curious actually is that nobody suggested that AI was a threat or a challenge. I think that, on one hand, we could think that it is a threat or a challenge. On the other, and this is my personal opinion, is that the accounting community should be absolutely like beyond excited, thrilled, that this is coming, because when we think about the talent opportunity that's ahead and the ability for us to create purpose for this community, then if AI is taking away a lot of the work papers and all the work that's in there and much more, because it's moving at such a great rate, there's such a great opportunity for that to take away that side of the business so that we can actually move into a world where there is purpose and we can actually deliver change. And so what is good tech? What is good software? Good vendors? From our perspective, it's a good user experience. And I think, all of my three colleagues here have all talked about, it's got to work for the client, it's got to work for the accountant in that space. I think for us, the most crucial thing is to understand is that accountants are slow to adopt. They are slow to change, and to really, whether it's the 20% or the 30% or the 40%, utilization of a product, it takes time, and relationships take a decent period of time to build out and to become really, really successful to have that impact. But ultimately, we want a moment of delight. And I think what vendors do badly is we call it vendor speak. Okay, they tell accountants what to do, and the reality is I'm not an accountant. I've never been an accountant. I've got a banking profession. What I know a lot about is capital, banking, how to fund businesses, how to raise capital, and so on. And therefore, we position our firm as a thought leader in that space, somewhere where accountants are less comfortable, and then we provide them the tools to go and access that and do those pieces. You can't go and speak to accountants to tell them how to do their day job, because we're not accountants. We're not trainers of accountants. We're not coaches of accountants. We're there, I think, as Denise suggested, to build partnerships, build relationships over the long term.
That's a very fair diplomatic answer. And certainly vendors have a role to play. I'm going to pivot here and give you all two wishes. So this is a time for your magic wand. And Denise, we'll start with you. If you had that genie out of the bottle and you could be granted two wishes, what would you like to see happen overnight with the accounting world?
I would say I'd want positive stories and maybe going concern to turn into positive stories instead of what it is today. I don't know if you all know Gordon, but I mean, there's a lot of negative stories on there. So I'd want to see the positive stories, the pathways, all the positive pathways there are. And honestly, I'd love to see, this may be out there a bit, but I'd love to see financial literacy like in every high school, community college, so we could start from and it's in about 25 different states, but we're working on it. It's just, we need to have this financial acumen starting at a very young age so that people understand the value. So kind of two different continuums, but that would be my two wishes.
Yeah. What about you, Paul? A couple of waves of that magic wand. What would you want to happen overnight?
I think, I mean, you just mentioned about the impact that the community had in the pandemic, and, they worked 7 days a week, many hours a day, making, tax payments, shifts in VAT in the UK, all the different things that were kind of happening at that.
And there was a lot about them wearing capes, wasn't there, at that time? They were the superheroes.
They really were the
business going.
superheroes. But I think, it's recognizing the impact that they have and can have, and actually the networks that they have, whether it's vendors or partners or like whoever it is, they have a great ability to be able to make a difference. And I think, the conversation here, that for me, a takeaway is the purpose that we can help create. So I think really it's just having faith and confidence on the impact that they can have, because they do it every day. They just don't necessarily back themselves to do it tomorrow.
Okay, so that was one wish on the impact and maybe more positive stories, to Denise's point. Was there another wish that you would take?
I think if there was a second wish, I think from a vendor perspective, I think that they should buy more capitalized.
Nicely selfishly put there. That would make your world a lot easier. I get
that would make my world a lot easier. No, I'm joking. I think that it is embracing, this technology that is around. There's a lot of AI. It's super exciting, and I think they've just got to embrace it all and move with it.
I wonder about that. What I hear from a lot of influencers that I speak to is that whilst AI provides a huge amount of opportunity, some recent research from Zero said that just over 30% of CPAs and accountants automate a bank feed. We know that some of them are struggling to adopt the cloud. We know that many are still in Excel spreadsheets and shoeboxes. And the accounting profession moves glacially slow. So whilst AI might have all of the answers, it might not be as fast as we think, given the adoption, the take up, the execution. Adam, you're nodding at that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think accountants are they're used to what they're used to. And it's hard to, especially, it's hard to embrace new things, especially when new things aren't as helpful as they are promised. I mean, anybody who uses Chat GPT or whatnot probably has an experience where Chat GPT gave them the wrong answer.
Yeah.
And they can't trust something as important as an accounting with things like that until it gets really good. So, but I do think, to Paul's point, we should embrace it, because if that gets, it will get better. Once it gets better, then that will take a lot of compliance off of our plates.
And it's what they do with that. What about your two wishes, Adam? What would you go for?
I feel two wishes. The first is that accountants as a profession would not have to focus on compliance, that compliance would just happen maybe through technology or whatnot. Now accountants, all that brain power can be put towards helping the client, which is my second wish, is that accountants would shift from being the compliance person to helping eradicate business failure. And that would be huge for the profession, because then all of a sudden the accountants would be seen in the minds of the world as just a necessary evil, to being the number one advisor to all the CEOs in the world and to all the business owners in the world, because now they're helping eradicate failure. And as we all know, most businesses fail. And right now, I mean, think about the Titanic. The Titanic probably had a CPA sitting on its top deck recording the numbers. Oh, we listed it, this degree 5 minutes ago, we listed it this degree, and then their job was done, but the Titanic still went down. And what's the point of having that accountant if the business failed?
I think that's a book that should be written. What the accountant did on the Titanic.
Right.
Okay. Leslie, I am excited about putting a magic wand in your hand and two wishes. What would you give us?
Well, many of my wishes were sort of taken, but I just want to reiterate. So my first wish is that accounting firms focus on helping their clients be profitable. And that's kind of what Adam was saying, is that they would say, what do you do every day? I talk to companies and I look at their numbers and I help them use their numbers to become profitable. So the first
shouldn't
step
be a
toward
wish,
that,
though, should it? That should be a reality right
well,
now.
but the wish is
unfortunately.
that they stop speaking accounting
Yeah.
and they start speaking business and English if you're an English speaker, that they start speaking a language that the clients can understand, instead of just going off and on about, oh, well, I'm not even going to get into it, but they speak a language that the clients understand, as opposed to a language that makes sense to them. So they stop speaking accounting and they start speaking a language for their clients.
Wow.
Go ahead. Would you like that? Stop speaking
Stop
accounting.
speaking accounting. That's
We tell people, you got to talk like a human. You cannot talk like an accountant. You got to talk like a human, because your customer is a human, not an accountant.
And I'm going to go off of Denise's, because my second wish is not just for the accounting firms and not for just the players that in it, is that everybody gets an understanding of numbers, is that financial literacy becomes something that everybody starts to understand. So that when I actually teach a class called What You Can Learn from Shark Tank. And I teach, what do they mean when they talk gross margin and points and, your cost of acquiring customers? What does that mean? Because people are watching it and they have no idea. If I give you, if I want $100,000 for 10% of my company. How did they figure out and impute the value of what that company's worth? And there's math behind that. And so I just think that too many people, you know, if you're illiterate in this, in America or in the UK, if you're illiterate in the world, you're embarrassed or ashamed. But if you're enumerate, which happens to be a word, if you are enumerate and you get some numbers in front of you, you throw your head back, you laugh and you go, ha, I was never very good in math. And everybody else goes, oh yeah, neither was I.
Yeah.
Well, then how did you buy a house? How do you have a job? How do you buy your groceries? How do you balance? I asked my daughter if she balanced her checkbook. And she said, why, yes, I go online and see how much money I have in the account.
Yeah.
So just understanding numbers and understanding how they affect world politics, how they affect your day-to-day business, how they affect interest rates, inflation, all of that. So my magic wand says I'm going to tap everybody on their head and they're going to understand numbers.
Yeah. I'm going to ask for you a final message of hope as we leave this, but just to finish that off, and Denise, I'll circle back to you on this too, because I know you're passionate about financial management and literacy. When I was at school teaching algebra, a lot of the kids had said to me, so why do I need algebra? How is that going to benefit me in real life? And how much better would it have been if I had on my curriculum managing a budget, working out credit card interest or interest on a loan, understanding your bank statement, things like that, that would really help people in real life. And instead I had to do Pythagoras and right angle triangles and algebra and everything else that a very small amount of engineers will use, but even they don't use it now because they press a button and the computers do it all for them. So it was frustrating. Denise, do you get a sense of what I was feeling there?
I do, yes. I hear out there every day that there's just so many young people that don't understand the basics. And it's, yeah, I understand it. I get it. It's frustrating.
Let's finish on a message of hope, though. Let's leave our audience with, we fired some shots, which is great. We've called out some stuff, which is great. We've offered some solutions, which is great. But ultimately, and Paul, I'll start with you on this one. Why is this a great time to be an accountant or to be working in the accounting world?
I think there's a number of things. I think, first of all, we've got data at our fingertips, readily available. We can, deploy it anywhere we need. We can move money from A to B. We can see it reconciled automatically. We've got a peer group that I don't think we've had. Go back a decade or two, the peer group wasn't there. Not every business, as much as we're kind of calling out for financial literacy here, not every business wants to be that. And actually, each of us have our roles. And so, let's help businesses do the business and, let's make sure that they can go on and make an impact in the economy. So I think it's really exciting because we can make a massive difference.
Denise, you're such an advocate for the profession and continue to be so in your role. What message of hope would you give to our audience here about why this is a great time to be in this game?
I think, to Paul's point, I mean, the tech is going to allow us to become more of an advisor and a strategist. I would say too, it's an opportunity with ESG and all that's out there from a sustainability standpoint to make it have a purpose. And there's tons of businesses out there, and there's a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs and help the economy just move forward. And so I would say this is a great time. There's just going to be a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. Adam, are you excited about the future? Can you convey some of that to our audience in closing?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to remember accounting is the language of business. And I think this is a great time for accountants to remember that and realize that their job is to be an interpreter of accounting in a way that makes sense, not just a recorder of the past. If we can get away from the accounting profession as being a recorder of the past to being an interpreter of the language of business to people who don't understand that language, everybody would be better off. The accountants would have more of an impact and the business world would have better businesses.
Amen to that. Leslie, I'm giving the last word to you on this. You've been passionate in this game for such a long time, and you continue to shout from the rooftops that this is a great game to be in. What message of hope would you leave us with today?
Well, the message of hope is post-COVID. We became the heroes of COVID. We helped businesses figure out how to get through that. And I think we can take that and continue to run with it, Because during COVID, we stopped being historians and we started being in the trenches, helping businesses on a day-to-day basis. And so I do think that two parts of that. One is that people understand us a little bit better and understand the need to have a really good accountant. And then I also think from a talent perspective, if you need to work at home or you want to work at home, and instead of driving an hour and a half in the morning and then an hour and a half home at night, think about when I used to spend 3 hours commuting for a particular job. You don't have to do that anymore. Maybe you come in the office 1 day a week. Maybe we have flexible time. Maybe we have flexible hours. And so being able to learn the positive lessons from COVID, there were a bunch of other negative ones I don't want to get into, but to learn the positive lessons from COVID, I think is helpful to the profession and gives us a greater outlook on how we can improve moving forward.
Accountants can change the world. Thank you so much for your passion and your insights today. It's been a wonderful discussion.
Thank you,
Thank
Rob.
you.
It's great.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rob.